Hi, welcome to my show. Today I have two ladies who are from the Chaldean Cultural Center, Judy Jonah and Mary Romaya. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the way we met, outside of us having the same cultural background, is that Judy recently reached out and wanted to do a programming together, and we are going to be showing the feature documentary that I did, The Great American Family, at the Maple Art Theater, which is on October 9th. Thank you so much for putting that together, Judy. That was
It's our pleasure. Everybody's anxious to see your documentary.
Thank you. And everybody knows Mary Romaya. You've had such a great history with the Cultural Center. And although we know about it and its existence, but oftentimes we don't know the details behind how it was formed, where the idea came, and I'm just so happy that you guys are here today that you can share this information. Now, I did get a personalized tour. Jody gave me a nice personalized tour, and I got to tell you, some of the things were really just, they touched my heart, especially the scenes in Tilkeef where, these are where our grandparents and great-grandparents are from, and seeing that, and it was so touching because of the fact of all that has happened over the years, and it's like, it's so important for us to preserve that. We have a little video that we're going to show about it, but I would like you first to share with us, how did the Cultural Center start? Who founded it? What was the idea behind it?
The Cultural Center started in February of 2003, and we officially opened in September of 2017, so it was 14 years in the making. And it was at a time when the Shenandoah Country Club was being designed and built. And members of the Chaldean Iraqi Association of Michigan, Chaldean Iraqi American Association of Michigan, approached some of our community leaders and said, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could have a cultural center or a space in which to preserve our heritage? And so that's where the thoughts originally came, that when they were designing Shenandoah, that they would leave space for us, just over 2,000 square feet, in which we would build an office and a museum and a cultural center. Even though it's located inside of the Shenandoah Country Club in West Bloomfield, it's an independent entity. We are a nonprofit. We are housed there, but we are not part of SIAM, the organization that owns Shenandoah.
Okay.
And we consider ourselves the archivists for all things Chaldean. We have thousands of pictures and videos and books and manuscripts that we've gotten from our own local community that we have bought, and even from the monasteries in the Nineveh Plain in Iraq. The founding fathers, to put it, of the Cultural Center included people such as Frances Borgie, Rosemary Anton. She was the first chairman of the board for the Cultural Center. Rod Kathawa, Hanashina, Virgin Audubon. I was on the board. Hanashina, Victor Saroki, and then Josephine Sarafa was the first executive director. So the whole process started in the winter of 2003, and then much of that time was doing research. I mean, we all say that we know our heritage, but we are a museum and a center. Our crown jewel is a museum, but we are more than just the museum. And so we had to make sure that everything was accurate, because museums have to be truthful. And so, people sometimes would say, well, we're pure Babylonians. Well, no, we're not quite.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we did a lot of research.
There's a lot of dialogue until now where there's that the Akkadians and the Sumerians and the Assyrians and the Chaldeans, and there's so much information. I know when I did my book, Mesopotamian Goddesses, I was just like, oh, I had no idea there was that many ethnicities, and we crisscross, but the whole idea, though, is just to be aware, at least, for the general history of it. And sometimes, yes, of course, as a museum or historians, you have to be pretty accurate with that. So would you say that was your biggest challenge? Was that the most time-consuming aspect of it?
That was the most time-consuming as far as getting information accurate. And we did have curators for each of the galleries. We have 5 galleries.
Yeah, I'm gonna be showing the galleries. There's pictures of them, but
right.
There's also, like I said, there's a video. So we'll show the video first, and then we can go through the galleries, and you can explain what each one is for.
And so the curators made sure that things were accurate. For example, for the ancient Mesopotamia gallery, our curators were from the Detroit Institute of Arts for the ancient Near East gallery. And then for the Faith and Church Gallery, we used Bishop Ibrahim and Harry Fumia, one of our Shamasha, Father Borgi. And so we tried to get experts in every field. And we did, that was certainly, in getting images, finding images, whether from our own community, and getting photographs, scanning them, returning the originals, as well as buying photographs from companies like Art Resource that sell photographs. So getting accurate information and supporting documentation was important. Writing was important. We hired a professional writer from New York. We hired a media producer from New York.
What do you mean writing?
Like when you come into the museum, there are large text panels.
Yes.
And so I was trying to capture within 30 words what that exhibit is about, as well as reader rails with smaller captions of images. So that was a challenge. I would say the other major challenge was fundraising. We did have a great deal of support from within the Chaldean community. Many families donated to us, and we're very grateful. And there is a donor wall with fairly large marble plaques with the name of the family. But we also had corporate sponsors, and many of them, like Dean Foods, which bought out Melody Farms Dairy, it's a Country Fresh brand, gave us money because so many of the Chaldean-owned grocery stores carry Country Fresh products, as well as the philanthropic branches of companies, like PNC Bank, Comerica Bank, Fifth Third Bank, DTE Energy. So there were a lot of corporate sponsors, and really largely also through the efforts of Judy, and we are grateful to Judy and to Congressman Joe Nolenberg when he was representing part of Michigan in the U.S. Congress, in the House of Representatives. He also got us a grant through the Federal Museum and Library Services Department, as well as from the state of Michigan.
Well, and so that brings me to the question with Judy, your involvement. Did you come on early on with the museum, or was that something that you came in later?
Yeah, I did not come in right away, no. My interest in getting Congressman Nolenberg involved was because during that time it was the first Gulf War. And when some of the Christian villages in Iraq were being destroyed or bombed, it was important for us. He represented a lot of Chaldeans in the 11th Congressional District at the time. This was in the 1990s. And he realized also that our history and our culture should be preserved also. And so he was able to get that through appropriations and get us some much needed funding to get started with our project.
And so, right now, what is your role with the...
I joined the board about 8 years ago. One of the early board members who was very instrumental in getting the whole museum started was Rosemary Antone. And she passed away, and they were looking for someone to fill her space on the board, and Mary came by and asked me, and I agreed to do it.
Okay.
So that's my involvement. And since then, once the museum opened and the construction was complete, the current board chairs stepped down, and I'm now the board chair for programming and operations.
Okay, so you have your hands full. Yes. But it is a worthy cause, because as we mentioned earlier, given everything that has happened historically, and I know for me, when I, as a writer, most of the history that I bring up regarding our heritage is through my writing more than my films for now. It's developing in that direction, but I am always so really happy and to be sharing certain facts that very few people know about, including, like you said, our own culture, and I think part of it is because we haven't been here really that long as a community. I know you were born here, Judy. That's very rare.
I was, and my mom was born here
in
my 1930.
God.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So, yes.
So you guys are like, but you're
My grandfather was not the first, but one of the first few that came to America, and started, I think, in 1918. For a few years, he went back home, and finally brought his family around 1928 permanently.
Well, I am going to share this video of the Chaldean Cultural Center, so then people can have a little bit of an idea what you guys have put together, and then we'll go through the different galleries that you have there. And let me find the video. It's right here.
I was wondering what that one right here. Babylon was home to indigenous Mesopotamian tribes, Sumerians, Akkadians, Assyrians, and Chaldeans.
This one was on 249.
This tablet is the earliest known map of the world. A hole in the center remains in the clay from the compass used to make the circle. The Euphrates River is shown at the center as a vertical band bisecting a band labeled Babylon. Mountains to the north are labeled as such and are indicated as a large curve. Chaldeans, as they were also called Babylonians at the time, spoke Aramaic, which was a bridge language used to connect different tribes at the time. Later, it was the language spoken by Jesus.
I baptize you, Isabella.
Cool. The Chaldeans in this area originate in the northern part of Iraq.
Cooking for dinner took place just before sunset. Wheat was the most important crop and was used to make cracked wheat, bulgur, and pakoda. Men would trade wheat and barley for fruit, eggs, and cheese, usually in Mosul.
They started coming to the Detroit area in the early 1900s.
These medals were his. He received them during World War II.
First one that came started in the grocery business. The rest of them came and worked for him. And as a result, everybody got into the grocery business originally.
This is my passport. It is the Iraqi passport. That's my high school picture. This is Ben, my daughter.
Many times in my life, I remember going over friends. They would tell me, Azif, you're such a nice boy. Too bad you are Christian. It's not something that you would be ashamed of. I mean, no, I am one, yeah.
Oh, look at this. I didn't even notice this. Every time I look, I see something. It's turned out that better. What do you think that one is from?
Such a cool video. So that's that's what you guys have been working on for this 14 years. And where does it stand right now? Like, what is the things that you're working on that needs attention, or what is the next step for you guys?
Well, the museum is complete.
Mhm.
What we're trying to do now to develop programming is possibly put together not a remote museum, but somewhat of a traveling roadshow where we could put something from from each gallery together, along with materials that Mary has made up. We have coloring books, we have crossword puzzles, all that are based on the 5 different galleries, so that we could go out to schools. Not everybody may have the opportunity to come to the museum, but we would still love to be able to share the diversity and the culture of the Chaldean community. So hopefully that will take place. And another challenge that we have now is to continue to raise money to make our museum sustainable throughout time, through the future.
Okay. And so I am going to go through the galleries that you guys can, describe in here. So it starts off, I remember when you enter it, it's like a story. Yes.
Right. As you enter each gallery, there's a date on the floor that tells you what time in history you're entering. So the first and the largest gallery is ancient Mesopotamia, and the date on the floor is 3300 BC. So the 3 images, the top right is Hammurabi's Code of Law, or the stele, and we received that. We bought it from the Louvre Museum in Paris. They have the original, they make authentic replicas, and we have one of their replicas. So if you walk up to the stele, you actually see real cuneiform writing. Mm-hmm. And the 2 other pictures, one, the middle picture was the...
Oh, you're still on this...
Yeah, I'm sorry. The standard of ore, the colored picture, and we got that image from the British Museum in London. Mm-hmm. And the bottom one is the Warka or Uruk vase. We have a replica of it done by one of our Chaldean artists, Abbas Salu. The original is in the was in the Iraqi Museum in Baghdad. I think is now that it has reopened. I think it was hidden and saved, hopefully.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I remember I read something about that. I'm not sure if it was one of the ones stolen and returned, but yeah, there's a lot of stories about those. Okay, and then we have our second.
This is the Faith and Church Gallery. The date on the floor is 33 AD, so that you're in the time of Christ. The upper image is one of the books. Actually, we received that from Bishop Ibrahim. And we wanted not only the Chaldeans, but non-Chaldeans to see Aramaic writing, and that being a Semitic language, it reads right to left. And the illustration was opened up to Palm Sunday, so that you see Jesus riding on a colt going into Jerusalem. And the bottom right picture is an image that we got from one of the manuscripts from the monasteries in northern Iraq. And it shows St. Thomas touching the side of Peter, because it was St. Thomas, who's greatly revered in the Chaldean rite of the Catholic Church for having converted the Chaldeans to Christianity. And then the other image was another manuscript.
Okay. And then
It's actually an image from a manuscript, and it deals with the end of the world, when all of the elect, all of the righteous people are going to heaven.
Okay, and then we have the third gallery.
The next gallery is Chaldean village life, and so we talk about the villages in the Nineveh plain, and the date on the floor is 1890, the turn of the 20th century. The top image shows a Chaldean family in one of the villages, and there's a map of Iraq. And within that map is a bigger map of the Nineveh plain. And we identify some of the more than 120 Chaldean villages and monasteries. And then there was some other farm scenes.
120 at what
There's
time was
more
that?
than 120
Wow.
Chaldean villages. That's one of the things that I found out in doing research.
I had no idea.
Telkef, or Telkepa in Aramaic, is the largest of the Chaldean villages, but there are over 120 because they go from near Mosul up north towards the Kurdistan area.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Okay. And so we have the next gallery.
The next gallery is Journey to America, and the year is 1933 on the floor. This along with the village gallery are immersive environments. Like when you walk into the village gallery, you're in of the village of a Chaldean village. When you walk into this gallery, you're actually walking into a 1930s Detroit-owned a Chaldean-owned Detroit grocery store. All of the packaging, everything is from the 1930s. And we really had to find items, scales and registers and adding machines and telephones from the 1930s. And we show passport pictures. And the bottom picture is as much of the Chaldean community that we could find one picture of 1947 when Father Bidawi, the first Chaldean priest to come to Detroit. When I was born, and for a lot of the early Chaldeans born in Detroit, we were baptized in a Lebanese Maronite church because we did not have a Chaldean church. And in 1947, then we got our first priest, Thomas Bidawi, and then the children were born.
That was a big thing.
Yeah.
Now, you were born here?
I was born here. My father came in
then you
1929.
I thought that I didn't realize that. You know what?
We had a
Chaldean.
The first Chaldean that we think was born in the U.S. was born in 1917.
Okay.
And that was Daisy Jalaba. Okay. We think she was the first U.S. She was born in West Virginia.
West Virginia, not in the Detroit area.
Yeah.
So in United States, but not here in Michigan.
Have you guys ever been in touch with her family members?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And we remember Daisy.
They were very involved with the museum and in the community. They were like stellars of the community. When there was a small number of Chaldeans in the Detroit area, the Jalaba family was, central to that.
Okay. And her husband, Sayed Jalaba, was one of our Shemasha at the original Mother of God Church, which was on, not the one on Hamilton, there was one on Euclid.
On Euclid first, yes.
Wow, I have so much material to read. Like my mind
We're
is
an older
right
community.
It's
an older, we've been here 100 years. We've been here more than 100 years.
Yeah. It is. It's just that I guess the larger immigrants, the larger number of
came
immigrants
in the 70s and 80s. Yes.
And those are the ones that most people are more familiar with. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. When the immigration laws changed in 1965, then you had more of an influx. And I remember doing a radio program, and the moderator said, so the Chaldean community began in 1965. And I said, no. I'm going to defend Judy's grandfather and my parents, and said it was really the Chaldeans here who signed the affidavits and petitioned for you to come to America, sent you the money for the plane tickets, and then employed you when you came to America. Because that was after the 67 riots, and the Chaldeans, who had been here for more than 40 years, 2 generations, had the business knowledge and the capital to buy the large supermarkets as the chain stores were leaving Detroit after the 67 riots. But the Chaldeans have been here. We have a picture of some Niger men here in America in 1910.
Wow. Yeah, it's, you're always learning something new. I mean, as you know, I have 13 books out. I've been writing for over 25 years about the Iraqi-American experience in general. But, of course, as that, a lot of the Chaldean, my heritage comes into that. But I wasn't aware of this. You're always learning something new. And that's why I'm really excited with regards to the Cultural Center, because it is an opportunity to spread all of this information. And as a mother right now, this is even more important to me than ever. So,
and it is for our children, especially because they've been in America for many generations now, and they're losing that culture. We want them to hold on to that culture. And it's funny because we talked about the different passports. Depending on what time frame the Chaldeans came to America, some of the passports said Turkish Empire, some said Mesopotamia, some said they were all different.
Some of it the British Empire, because after World War I, Iraq became a protectorate of the United Kingdom.
Yes, and the name changed and all this.
So political climate kept changing in Iraq, and more Chaldeans, were leaning towards immigrating to America.
Well, I have one more, which is this is you guys, basically, right?
Well,
this
the
is like the more
Yeah.
right, the closer to the now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Chaldeans Today. This is our last gallery, and there's no date on the floor because it's today. We have one exhibit that has 20 images of the original Chaldean pioneers. The top picture is Aziz Hassano. We did not put the people's names. They were amongst the people who were here before World War II, firmly established with American-born children and or young children who came to America but American educated. And we say that exhibit is labeled Our Past. Facing that exhibit is an exhibit of 16 children we wrote to each of the Chaldean churches in Detroit and Chicago, which is part of our diocese or eparchy. And we got a boy and a girl from each parish and had them come to Shenandoah, and we professionally photographed them. Again, no names. And those 16 images, it says our future, and our past and our future are looking at each other. Plus, we have an exhibit of 75 photos from the earliest images we could get, mostly black and white, of the earliest community in America, and that includes San Diego, and we even have pictures from Mexico. Some Chaldeans did go to Mexico. And then through to today, and we have room for about 40 more pictures, and that's ECRC when it was founded. And you can see Father Frank Calabato, now Bishop Francis, in that picture.
Well, nothing beats somebody going there and seeing this for themselves. So I really encourage you, and it's not just for the for the Chaldeans or people of Mesopotamian history or Iraqi history. This is for everybody, because this is where ancient civilizations and the cradle of civilization. And so it's very important to be familiar with this, and especially because Michigan does have such a large population. It's very good to know our neighbors. I really want to thank you for coming here today, and this deserves such a longer, we need to basically take everybody, just take them through the museum for them to really experience what we're talking about. But in the meantime, they can go to the website. We have brought the website here a couple of times, and regarding the film, which is playing at the Maple Art Theater, or the Maple Theater. Is that how they say it? I always put the word art in. I think I just like that. Oh, that's what it is. I thought, am I going crazy here? Yeah, so
but it's the Maple Theater at Maple and Telegraph in Bloomfield, and it's on October 9th.
And then to get tickets, do they also go to the Cultural Center
They could go right to our website, or they could call our office, and there's going to be people in the community that will be selling tickets also. So we encourage everybody to come. It's a very compelling documentary.
It's a very compelling documentary. It does affect the Chaldean American community, the Arab American community, just minorities in general, and also all proceeds go to a good cause for a nonprofit organization, for the Cultural Center. So, ladies, thank you so much for coming. You have to come back again once. I'm sure the Cultural Center is going to be busy and doing more things, and I would love to see you guys back again to talk about that.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.